Welcome back to the table, everyone, and hopefully, if I don't bump stuff too much, welcome back to a steady camera. I know when I was playing the Sergeant's game, I was trying that freehand, and I mean, obviously that's a lot of camera moving all over the place, and I know some people don't like that, but I really couldn't think of a better way to film that, and I think that's how I'll end up doing some of the miniature games, is just kind of, I see a lot of people doing that. They just kind of play the game. One hand holds the camera, one does all the dice rolling and stuff. And the Sergeants, even though that's a board game, it's got pieces spread out all over the place. That seemed to work. But anyway, what does it have to do with this? Oh, steady camera. Now we're back to an overhead for people who like that. What I want to do is talk about this new game I'm getting into. I got this. This is Ultracombat Normandy, skirmish wargaming in World War II. Came out in 2018. I don't remember exactly when it came out, like what month. I got it though as soon as it appeared on Wargame Vault. So it's just been sitting around for me for a good year or two. I saw they had a playthrough video, and there's like a couple people who played it, and I thought it looked great. And then I got it, and it just didn't make sense to me. And I don't know why it didn't make sense to me, but lately, you know, fast forward a year or two, I've just been on this real fascination with playing some kind of small skirmish type of games. I picked up Code 1, well, it's the Infinity Code 1 starter box, and I played that a little bit with my son. It plays so fast. It's really easy to kill stuff, which is what the game is designed. You play that plays like 3 turns. Each person gets kind of a phase in that, and there's reactions, and it's very fascinating. I like it a lot. And I was like, man, it would be really cool if they had something like that for World War II. I think that Infinity rule set would be great for just small skirmishes, World War II. And I think I'm going to use their rules directly as applied and just sneak in some World War II figures and play it that way. But I got to remembering I had picked this up, Ultracombat Normandy. And I went back and watched some videos, and I said, you know, it's not too shabby. It made more sense to me after watching the playthrough. One thing I've got to remind myself, it's okay if you don't include every rule. What do I mean by that? They have you know, the close combat, they've got vehicle combat, they have assaulting building combat rules. There's a lot of rules for stuff. This PDF clocks in, if you include all the charts, 174 pages. Not bad. Rules are, I'm looking to see where rules stop. Rules go all the way out to like, that's Appendix A. Talks about building your elements. So let's say if we're talking just rules, not building elements or anything like that, you get out to like 115 because there's a glossary. So even if you take out the glossary and you just stop, here's scenarios, so 111. Okay, so let's get past scenarios. We're talking, let's find where just the rules. Here's a combat example. Okay, morale test. This is like a repeat of some of the rules, but it's anti-tank gun. Okay, so let's stop there. Let's just say rules. 96 pages of rules. You don't need to read all that. And I got to keep reminding myself, it's okay if you just come up and you read just a little bit to get you going. Some combat, some moving. Now, one thing that I like about the rules is a lot of the rules repeat often throughout the pages. Like, I can't tell you how many times just in the first like 50 pages they explain and show you this AP action chart list of cost of actions. So there's a lot of things that kind of repeat themselves throughout, which is fine because it kind of shows that same information from a different point of view of whatever point they were trying to make. So things repeat quite a bit. But there's really just a few things you need to get yourself going. So that's the first thing I wanted to do, was show you this PDF and then talk a little bit about element construction and things like that. So the idea with this game, the more I read it, you can play it with as little as 1 squad per person, and is designed to scale up to be like a platoon of 40-ish people and maybe 1 or 2 vehicles. So you're talking like bolt action level, that kind of stuff. So it's not a huge game. Maybe if you're even familiar with like Chain of Command, from 2 fat lardies. You know, a platoon. That's what you can play up to comfortably. I think you could probably play more, but then there's other rule sets that go beyond 1 platoon. So how does this work? If you're not familiar with this game, I'll just share some things of why I kind of keep coming back to it and want to give it a shot here. First, you're going to have the construction of your squad. And there's even different ways to build your squad. But let's look at here at the allies. You can have rifle. I have set aside some elements I'm going to do for my first game. But just to show you here some leftover cards. That's the thing. There's like a lot of cards. If you buy the PDF, there's a lot more cards than this. These are just some cards I cut out for infantry type stuff. But there's also, and I didn't even print them all out because I needed some other things, but there's quite a few vehicles that you can get to. Of course, that's upside down. But you can see there's like some anti-tank guns. There's your 88 flak, to include a bunch of vehicles. Now, you're looking at this going, wow, there's three panzers you could have. Actually, you could have a lot more panzers than this. But when you're looking at these cards, there's 3 of each type of card because there's an experience value associated, which affects some of the stats on the card. So there's novice, however you want to pronounce it, tomato, potato, apples and bananas, average, veteran. Now, down here are some important things. There's like your spotting value, targeting value, driving value. I haven't even read the vehicle part yet, but that's why there's 3 of each card. Even here with the flak, there's a novice, average, vet, flak. So when you look at the rifleman, I already took out the veteran rifleman for the allies. So there's novice, average, and how experienced they are will affect like their morale in combat. It affects their spotting, shooting value, hand-to-hand combat value. And this armor value here is an interesting read. They base this on the fact that there was no body armor developed in World War II. And so this represents your helmet, essentially. So if your people get shot with like submachine guns, that kind of, you know, rifle fire, that kind of a thing, pistols, you get to make a save. And if you roll a 1 or a 2 on a 20-sided die, see that this is a 20-sided die game. But if you roll that 1 or 2, you save from that shot. And they even explain, I thought it was cool how they came to this number. There is research, someone did, I forget the names, okay, so just go with the story. But anyway, apparently someone read or wrote a report and said that a lot of casualties and things like that, 10% were saved, like their lives were saved by their helmet. So there was like a lot, like maybe 10% of all shots went to people's heads and they were saved by helmets. Okay, I'm really paraphrasing and dishonoring that person's study, but that's how they got 10%. So based on some study of World War II statistics, 10% of people were saved by their helmets. Like I said, grossly paraphrasing the story. But that's why on a 1 or 2, because that's 10% on a 20-sided die. So I thought, well, at least they've got a reason why they have a save value of 2. I'm going to just talk randomly about a lot of things for this game. There's nothing coherent with this, but I just want to share things that have drawn me to it, things that have me concerned about it, and you know what I'm going to do to work around some of that stuff. So first of all, if you want to buy this and play, you're going to have to print out some cards and then do a lot of cutting, and then I would recommend sleeve them or something, because otherwise it's just paper, unless you're really, really good cardsmith with, I'm not. So I just print them on paper, cut them out, put them in a sleeve to give them a little bit of heft. And then what I did, I didn't even do points. I just took and built around the basics of, say, an Axis squad and then an allied. So I have an average rifleman unit, I have a sniper unit, average sniper, a junior NCO who's average, an average NCO, and then finally I got an average heavy weapon team. And this is your basic Axis squad. Now I'm saying Axis, I'll tell you why in a minute. So let's just say if you're doing Normandy, it's probably Americans or British against Germans. Because of the big star made me think in an olive drab. So it makes me think of like Americans, okay? So you've got Americans versus Germans. And you're going to have, say, 4 or 5 men in your rifle element. You've got a couple of people in the MG42 element, if you will. You probably got a couple of people in your sniper element, and then 1 junior NCO, 1 NCO. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Add in like 4 people, that would make 8. And you got like a couple people who run the heavy weapon. That's about a 10-man squad. About a 10-man German squad. And let me tell you why I like that. I like this because when you play the game, you activate an element and you say, okay, I'm gonna, like let's say you got your cards and it's coming up on your turn. What you do is you decide what element you want to activate. It reminded me a little bit of like bolt action, because that's kind of how bolt action is, except you randomly draw a die, and if it comes up in the color of your nation, then you could say, okay, which of my elements do I want to activate? So I like that this is you're picking an element to activate. So I want to move my 4-man rifle team. Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to put this card down to bid for initiative. So this is going from, you've built your squad, now you're playing. This is where this experience comes in, because when you start a turn, you and your opponent are going to bid based on that experience level of the crew, who goes first, or of that element. So for example, in this sample allied squad, I'll show you them in a moment, I have chosen a veteran rifle unit. So if these two go down and you place them, you bid secretly, so you don't know which element your opponent's going to activate until you reveal them both. And then I go, oh, my veteran beats your average rated troops, and so I'm going to do something with my veteran element. If you both play an average, like let's say I play my average scouts, then you roll off and you're going to roll your 20-sided dice against each other. So whoever wins. And whoever wins that initiative will go first. Like that element will do something, and then your element. So let's take a look at the Americans I came up with. So the Americans, I'm reading in the book, they didn't have dedicated sniper teams, but they had what were called scouts. So we'll say that's about 10 or two people. And then I had a NCO and a junior NCO. Now here I just chose this kind of randomly. I picked the novice junior NCO. I didn't spend points to create these, so there is rules in the book for creating your element, when you do your squad. Like you take, like if you did a junior NCO and you brought a novice one, that's so many points per person in that section. Same with a scout. If you choose average scouts, then there's so many points per person in that scout unit. So there's a little bit of math when you're building out your units. So mathematically, my Axis squad and my Allied squad probably aren't very equal, because I didn't math it out. I just simply said, hey, for some variety, I'm going to take a novice junior NCO and a veteran rifle unit. Again, points-wise, I haven't looked in the book to see if that would be very equal to what the Axis squad would get, but that's what I chose to do. And so then the rifleman here probably has again 4 or 5 soldiers, depending on what you purchase. And then you have your heavy weapon team, which also has about 4 people, because really it was a bunch of riflemen and one of them had like a BAR kind of a thing. So you might have about 12 people in your Allied squad, which, according to the book, was not uncommon. You could have about 12 people in a squad. Great, so you're going to activate them by elements. I really like that. Even in a squad level game, instead of just alternating individual people, you're moving little fire teams. They move together and they act together. So I thought that was neat. So you break them down by elements. Now, of course, your junior NCO and NCO, those are individual elements. You'd be moving your one model across the board, but at least your teams, you can move your little section. Okay, here comes the rifleman up. So that's a little bit like, okay, that's cool. I can deal with that. And then you have some little Doctrine cards here, which I haven't sleeved up. And this is now going to kind of go into some things that I don't know how, until I get to really play this, how some of this is going to work out. So my first thought was with these Doctrine cards. They're very, very generic. Okay, it just says rush. An element playing this card adds 1 die 6 inches per AP spent on movement for this turn. Oh, this makes them easier to be spotted. So when you start your turn, you draw one of these cards, one of these Doctrine cards, and you play that. Well, you don't have to play it, but see, I didn't print these on full size. I printed these on full size, so these cards turned out a lot smaller than they needed to be. Oops. So anyway, you draw one of these, and during your turn, you can decide to play one of these element cards, one of these tactic cards, with your element. And you can either A, use the instructions on the card to modify the element, such as an element playing this card adds 1 die 6 inches per action point spent on movement this turn, or I could use this to guarantee that I win the initiative check. Since I don't know if my opponent is going to play a veteran card or a novice card or whatever, I can say I'm playing this to break the tie between equal experience. And then if both of you play one of these cards, they cancel each other out, and you still got to do a roll-off. But what's nice is if you are drawing your tactic cards and you pull this one and you go, ooh, this is really stupid, I don't like it, at least you know you could use it for something else. And then at the end of the turn, whatever cards you don't use, they're discarded. So it's nice, I think. It's just a nice little thing. But here's where I was like, they're generic. So when I'm thinking Doctrine card, or like a Doctrine card, I'm thinking this would be some doctrine specific to maybe that nation. I've played a lot of games where there are nation-specific rules, and I have mixed feelings on that, because sometimes I'm thinking, is that a little much? Like, were armies really, really that different in terms of their tactics? Okay, I know you could say, well, Germany relied on their MG42s, British were, their rapid minute of fire, like, you could say there are some things that, yeah, were unique to those nations. Okay, but these are not them. These are called Doctrine cards, and there's no Doctrine card in here that's specific to either nation. They're just generic things. I don't like calling them a Doctrine card, because to me that would kind of give the meaning of this is some kind of training specific to this nation. Anybody can patrol to contact. Nothing special about that. So I kind of think they're more of a tactic card than a Doctrine card. Make sure that's what they call them. I'm pretty sure that's what they call them. Let's see. Let's go back in. World on Fire. Let's see if I go past here. Yeah. Okay. See. Tactic. They put that there. Tactic. Okay. I'm glad they did. For some reason, my brain had erased that section. Doctrine/tactic card. So never mind. I have a newfound respect for these cards. There you go. But I was just thinking, though, there's nothing in here that makes this game specific, really, to either just Germany or America or the British. It's all very generic. For example, the only reason that I was thinking these are Germans and Americans in the first place is just because the game is called Ultracombat Normandy. And in my mind, that's when you show me the olive drab and a star, I'm thinking it's Americans against the Germans. But the rules being how they're written, this could equally apply to Russia. You could say these are Soviet troops fighting Germans, and it would be just as good. You could say these are American infantry against Italian troops of some sort. And the game would be equally playable. Everything would be the same. You just simply change the name of the combatants. Okay, so why is that good? Why is that bad? Well, good because I was thinking to myself, Why would you make a game, Ultracombat Normandy, and that's it? Because now you've shoehorned yourself into potentially a very static rule set that there's nowhere to go from there. I'm in Normandy. I was thinking, wow, what if they came out with Ultracombat Stalingrad? And I thought to myself again, well, you don't need that. These rules will cover the exact same thing. Because honestly, I could just as easily say, this is a it says rifleman, veteran. This is a guards unit. This is like a special Soviet guards unit. Boom, done, covered. Oh, okay. So now the rules are generic enough that I could really substitute this to be anything. So I'm kind of torn. There's nothing that really just screams to me that, you know, hey, these are specific to Americans or specific to a nationality to give them flavor of their own. But this will let you play any models that you have, because with this kind of rating system that you have, I could say maybe it's late war, like maybe I'm looking here. I could just as easily say, well, this rifleman average, these are, I could go in here and find, and say I'm doing like a scenario here. I could look in my stack and find my axis and go, well, let's say we're later in the war and this is a Fallschirmjäger unit made up of, you know, the old men, kids. So yeah, it's a heavy weapon unit, but they're novice because they don't have any experience. I could say maybe this is early in the war and I have that same Fallschirmjäger heavy weapon team. Now I've got veteran Fallschirmjäger. Bam! So there's some flexibility with the generic of this, right? So is that a strength? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I know some people like their games to have specifics. You know, I'm specifically modeling and therefore I want my stats to reflect that. I guess in a way this kind of gives you some of that, you know? So is it too generic? Is it flexible? I guess that's really kind of up to you. These were thoughts going through my mind as I was reading the rules and trying to prep for it. Now I do like that they have some really nice little cards here that have your reminders. Here's a vehicle damage table card. Cool. Here's a weapons card which has the different weapons on it. It shows their damage, area, penetration value, the morale. So when I say the morale, the type of damage they do. Yeah, I haven't quite mastered combat yet, but I do know that certain weapons can either suppress you or they just do morale markers, and that kind of made me think of like bolt action, right? As you put pins on people, that reduces their effectiveness. Same thing here, but some weapons that cause suppression, that puts more pins on your folks. So like a heavy machine gun is going to put a lot more suppression on somebody than just say like a pistol fire. So little reminder cards, I like stuff like this. I think I will spring for their professionally printed cards. They have some that look really nice that have all the, here's your vehicle spotting shooting cards. They got some that are really nice quality looking cards I've seen people play with. Let's grab, here's another one. Shooting and spotting reminder card. And here's a couple more of those Doctrine / tactic cards here. Here's one. Assess the situation. This card can only be played on junior NCOs, NCOs, and officers. The element has now assessed the situation and is relaying orders to his men. He can now allocate up to double his normal command points, but with a maximum of 2 points per element. Oh, sweet. That's one thing so far I've really only seen the officers are needed for, which I think is fine, is they, since every unit gets essentially like 3 action points to do things, the NCOs, officers, as you can see, they can actually transfer some of their action points out to other elements, thus giving those elements potentially more opportunities to act and do things. The element, through experience or training, has experience in fighting in built-up areas. Fibua. They gain additional +4 to the melee skill when engaging the enemy in a building assault. Sweet. Alright, so those are good. So what are some other things here? Well, let me finish sleeving these. Now, to play this, I'm lucky in the fact that I've already got some figures from the bolt action. What was this? This is a different box, but I picked up the bolt action Band of Brothers starter set. They're not painted, trust me. I have painted a couple just to experiment painting to see what would look good, and I just got to figure out how I want to base them. And then my son was like, dude, I'm going to do the Germans. So here's his sniper with ghillie stuff on him. And here's another guy that he painted up. You know, they look pretty good on camera. Up close, I'm like, what in the world did he do? But on camera, it's like, yeah, bury that guy in bush. Nice. And then I've got another. So we've got a couple painted here. So we've got enough that we can play the game. So I'm thankful for that. Also, he was working on some camouflage for this. I don't know what scheme that is, but it is his and he owns it. So good job, son. So I have enough figures that I can do squad versus squad and try to figure it out before I start moving up into something bigger. What other things can you download to help with the game? There's actually quite a bit, so I'm going to show you here in just a moment. Finish putting these in sleeves. That way my son and I will have these little handy dandy reminder cards when we play the game. Now, in the PDF that I purchased, it had all of these cards, all the cards that you could print out and print. I also had some player reference sheets. I'm going to show you those because I did print those out. It also has these little markers you can print out, so you can put if you're pinned or if someone's suppressed or hesitated, if they're just under a morale hit, if they're hidden, you know, if they moved, which is important because, you know, if your people move, then technically they kind of have stopped moving on the board, but in game terms they're still moving, right? Because, you know, turns are flowing in time and whatnot. So it's nice to put a little reminder, because moving targets are easier to spot, more difficult to hit as a target. So you got some of these markers that you can use. If I had thin cardboard, I would glue these to the thin cardboard, cut them out just to give them some heft. I'll have to see if I've got any. So you got quick reference sheets that you can print out from the PDF. Also, if I remember right, the quick reference sheets are also available on their website. If you are interested to go and see a lot of this yourself, you can. If you go to, I think it's Radio Dish Dash is the name of the company, but even if you just type in Ultracombat Normandy and do a search, you can go to their homepage, and they actually have all the cards available for you to print out. They have the quick reference sheets, which talk about your AP expenditure here, spotting modifiers, shooting modifiers, morale modifiers. Here's the damage, because basically to shoot something, you need to spot it. Now, if every unit gets 3 action points, and let's say it's not modified by your officer, you could, for example, here's the AP cost to do things. You could do, there's spotting cost. Where's spotting? Spotting is like 1 AP. There it is. So you spend 1 AP to spot, and if you see the target, you could spend 1 AP to fire. And let's say you wanted to shoot again. The second time you shoot, it costs 2 AP points. So you couldn't spot and shoot twice. But that's where the officer comes in. So if you have an officer, so if I've got my fancy German sniper here, and I've got his officer could say, well, I'm going to give you 1 of my AP points. Now, this guy could spot, shoot, and if he missed, he could shoot again because he's got 4 AP while he goes down to 2. Very simple mechanics. What I liked about the game and watching people play it in practice was it's not that difficult to know what your unit's doing, because you might say, oh man, each of these has 3 action points. I have to remember that. Well, it's not that bad because usually the element acts together. So for example, if my officer wanted to give points, he would have to give it to an individual person. He doesn't give it to the element. So he might say, well, I'm going to give the sniper an extra point. Just say, all right? But as a group, you could say, well, this group needs to spot, because in order to shoot something, it's on a 1-to-1 ratio. So everybody here needs to see all of the targets over here. So let's put some nasty unpainted figures out here, right? So you would have to look at your card. So if I've got my average rifleman, a spotting of 16, well, that means I have 4 soldiers, so I'm going to roll 4 die 20. So that's 1 action point. So even though they each have their own action points, you can do group actions, and you know, okay, I'm going to subtract. So I roll 3 dice, and everything under 16 is a spot. So I know 1 soldier out of these 4, 1 of them spotted. Okay, so now here's where things could get a little tricky. You might say, well, my sniper spotted a guy. And now the spotting says you can also see everything on up to 1 inch on either side of what you spotted. So let's say they were a close group. So you can say, well, the sniper sees everyone, but these guys are blind. Okay, so where it gets to tracking AP, well, my sniper can spend 1 action point to tell these guys where the enemy is, and that would give them an AP bonus or a bonus on their next spot action. So he could say, I'm passing the info. Those 3 are going to spot again. It's +4. So they needed to roll, because they were average, they had to roll under 16. But now he gave them the coordinates of those guys, so that's +4. So now they're spotting under 20. The only way they're going to fail is if they roll a natural 20. That's a fail. So now they've all spotted. So they've all spent 2 action points. And now they could all fire once for 1 action point. And you could say, well, these 2 will fire here, he'll fire here, he'll fire here. And then you can go on and roll your shooting. And shooting's the same thing. Look at your shooting skill, see what modifiers you have, and roll under. Since all of them spotted, they all have 1 action point left. Oh, there's a 4th guy. They shoot. I think the funny symbol here, oh, that's a 1. So that's a hit. You want to roll low. So we ended up with 3 hits. Oh, great, because there's 3 targets. So you could just kind of associate it that way. Oh, we saw 3 people, we shot 3 people. So even though you've got individual action points, if you just kind of work things as a group, it's probably not going to be that bad in practice. But you could definitely do everything 1 by 1, just whatever you prefer. But that's kind of the basics. Just activate your element, decide what they're doing as a group, make the rolls, and once that element's done, if they had any survivors, boom, they get a turn. Easy. But let's say they hit, remember they got shot, these guys got shot by rifle fire, so then I'm going to check to see if they get any saves. Their helmet stopped nothing, so they are all being shot. Then the person who hit gets to roll on a damage chart, and that's simple. If you roll, since we had 3 hits, combat ineffective on a 13+, then there's hesitant or pinned, so you just roll. That's a 1, so one of them is hesitant. Well, good, none of them died, and then 2 of them are pinned. And then, like, you can just put the little markers down, like which ones. Oh, I moved them off. But you can just put down your little, one guy is hesitant, one guy is pinned. They got little rules on what that means there. And then later, when they're hesitant or pinned, you can do a morale test to see what they do. And again, you would just roll for each element that either they're pinned or hesitant or whatever to find out what they do. And whatever they fail their morale test by. So I'm just kind of briefly explaining some mechanics there. But yeah, so you got these charts that help you play the game. Oh yeah, that's where I was going. Told you this was totally random. But all the rules and stuff, you know, are obviously in the rule book, but all of the charts here give you a pretty good idea of how the game is played. Here's some weapons. Here's your failed morale test. Oh, that's repeated. Failed morale test, failed morale test. Okay, so that's on 2 different charts for you. Status damage. Okay, that's... Did I print some of these twice? Weapons. Nope, generic grenades, that's just more stuff. Okay. So you have there on their website the quick reference. So this would go a long way to explaining a little bit of how the game works, different AP costs for different actions. And also on their website, I thought these were really cool, these little how to play aids. You want to know how to do infantry combat? We just did it. You spot, you shoot, you check for damage, and then you see what happens to them. Are they hesitant, pinned? Well, I guess this damage, I should have done that first to check how much damage. So good thing I've got this reminder chart for the future. But there you go. These are all on the website. Again, it gives you a good idea of how the game is played. They have one here for interrupt. So yes, you have like opportunity fire actions. So there's reactions. Remember I was talking about playing Infinity? That game thrives on the reaction system. They just call this interrupts. So slightly different system, but elements that haven't activated, if they qualify to interrupt, they can try to shoot at somebody or whatever. This talks a little bit about how to use your action points and the skills, and then there's the skills you have or actions you're taking and how many action points they cost. Here's how to do morale checks. All very handy. Infantry attacking vehicles. I mean, lovely play aids. I mean, these are fantastic. That's why I printed them out. Melee combat play aid, and your building assault. So everything that you possibly could need to know about the game is here. So I'm not telling you to do, go here, print these things out, and play the game without paying them money. Okay, that's not my intent. But what I'm saying is, I think you'll find you have here in this very generic open system, a system that will let you play most major World War II conflicts with just a few things to kind of get you going. I would, if you like that idea, after you've played a little bit, I would highly recommend that you buy the rules. The rules, I think I got them, they were discounted when they came out, so not even $20 PDF. I think the hardback costs a little bit more than that, but like my next time that I get some fun money to spend, I'm going to go ahead and actually buy the professionally printed cards, and I'm going to buy the hardback rulebook since I already had the PDF. So let's go take a look, because I know y'all like to look at that kind of stuff with me here. So let's see if I can find the website. This was another game I was looking into, 5 Minute Kursk. Let's see here. I thought I had Dish Dash up. No? Okay, so let's go here to... Yeah, see, I was looking at World War II skirmish rules. I was trying to find little games. So let's see if we type Ultracombat. Ultracombat Normandy. They even have an Ultracombat Modern, which I thought looked pretty cool. So let's do that. Yeah, there's actually just a couple of videos on there that show the game in action. Here we go, Dish Dash. Maybe it's not Radio Dish Dash, it's Dish Dash. Alright, pages loading. Dish Dash Games. Ultracombat Normandy. Is this going to load nicely for me? Yeah, I wish the PDF included this cover art because I thought that's kind of cool. $35 for the hardback book. I don't think that's unreasonable for an almost 200... Well, I don't know if the back of the book includes all those charts and tables the same as the PDF does, but that's not a bad price, I don't think, for a hardback book. The PDF on their website's $15. And you could check Wargame Vault. Sometimes Wargame Vault does sales. So you might be able to find it slightly better. But $15 for the PDF I don't think is unreasonable at all for this rule set. And let's see, what are some other things they have here? I was hoping they had the cards. But yeah, if you come here, for instance, to the downloads, you'll see some of their Skirmish Sanguine stuff. But just come down a little bit and you'll see Ultracombat Normandy. The cards, the quick reference sheets, and these play aids I did. So all of that stuff that I got is there on their website for you to go check out. I encourage you to check it out. And the store, this is what I wanted to find. You can buy the cards. You can get the Allied cards, Axis cards. You can get the Doctrine cards. They're selling them. There's full sets. This includes, the vehicles, all the ratings, from novice, average to veteran. So it's got different vehicle types, your infantry types, and then your Doctrine cards, however many those are. But they're $15 for each card set. I've paid much more for less as far as cards go. But yeah, here's your... Oh, they don't include the vehicles. Oh, I didn't even notice that at first. The vehicles are separate. Okay, now we're getting pricey. Now you're getting pricey. All right. So to start out with, if you just want the infantry, $15, got it. And in fact, it even says just infantry deck. Okay, so over time, I'll pick up all the cards, I think, to have them. But that's about it that you really need to buy. If you want to buy stuff to support them, get the book, get the cards, and then you'll be all set. Yeah, so check it out. Like I said, I just kind of was rambling through, wanted to share some thoughts on this game. It caught my interest, and those are some things that caught my interest. I like the idea of moving elements instead of just alternating back and forth one man to one man. There's a little bit of randomness in who gets to act first because it's like a blind bid. And then if you bid the same rating of experience, then it's a roll off, so you have to roll for each phase if there's a tie on those experience levels. So there's a little bit of randomness there. Yeah, and the combat didn't seem, like I said, it didn't seem all that difficult. See if you can spot people. You shoot the ones you can spot. If you have an element of like 5 people and you only spot 2 people in there, then those are the only 2 people you can shoot at. And it goes the same with your squad. If only 2 people in your squad can actually spot in that other element, then only 2 of your people get to shoot. So this is definitely a game that you want to have like terrain and things like that so people can hide and move about, because that's going to play a big part in it. What I like is they do make a big distinction between cover and what do they call it? There's like cover, I forget the other one. There's cover, let's see if I can find it. I don't know why I can't remember it here. Cover, oh, maybe I have it on a chart here. I got all these charts. One of these, cover, and it was like protection. Let's see. Because one makes it harder for you to be seen. That's like cover. And then concealment. That's what it is. So concealment makes you harder to see, but items that are in cover makes you harder to hit. So I like that. It's just an interesting mix of kind of like detail and generic concepts that they've blended together that just absolutely fascinate me to play. So even though the game is called Ultracombat Normandy and everything is kind of colored and themed to look like it's Americans versus Germans, you really probably could play this in any setting and those mechanics would work just the same. So I say give it a shot. If you have played it, tell me, what do you think? What are your thoughts on Ultracombat Normandy? If you haven't seen it or played it, does that even interest you? Not that we're playing it all together, but I'm just curious on, maybe I've shown you something new that you're now interested in. Plus, they also have the Sangan. Oh boy, what was that one? We were just there. Skirmish Sangan. That's like their first game that they came up with. And then they also have the Ultra Modern. So it's not just Ultra Modern, Ultracombat Normandy. They have like Ultracombat Modern too. So there's a modern set of rules that they have, which I thought looked pretty cool. They look very, very similar, but it's all themed around, like if you look at the downloads. And I think the Ultracombat Modern came out before Ultracombat Normandy did. So they have some example of like cards here. Infantry Combat, I don't know if that's a video or what. Oh, let's take a look. It's downloaded. Can I open it? Yeah, oh, here's play aid. So now if you want to learn how to do their modern, there's a play aid right there. They get body armor. They get more than just a helmet save. They actually get body armor. Okay, now we're just chatting. I'm not really doing anything for the game now. Now we're just looking together. So Skirmish Sangan, Home of the Wolf. Oh, Halloween. Okay, what is that? Is it a werewolf? Please tell me there's a werewolf involved. It's downloading. Let's look. Oh, man. Okay, I'm sold. They have a Skirmish Sangan scenario for werewolves. Nice. Yeah, Skirmish Sangan, that is a completely different looking set of rules. That one seemed to be focused a lot more on, yeah, it is Radio Dish Dash, or just Dish Dash Publishing. It looks like it definitely focuses more on individual people. So instead of moving your elements, like you might have a fire team of 3 guys, but you have a sheet that will track the individual stats of each soldier. So that one seems even more honed in on the action. Whereas this, you can kind of hone in on, you know, if you're playing just a 10-man squad against a 10-man squad. But Skirmish Sangan, from what I've seen, is not designed to play up above that. Like, it's definitely at a squad and smaller type of game. Whereas Ultracombat Normandy, you can start at a squad and build yourself up to that platoon. So they've got 2 games to kind of fit maybe what your interest level is. If you want just the skirmish, 10 people, or bring it up to a platoon. Anyway, we're back there. I've seen the Vietnam notes, but I did not bother to look at the Vietnam thing. Let me take a look at the Vietnam. What does it have? Obviously, probably for Vietnam. Introduction to Vietnam gaming, forces free rolled in the commies, new weapons, helicopters, vehicles. All right, that's great. Introduction to Vietnam, armies in the Indochina conflict. Okay, great. Marines. Okay, cool. Nice, sweet, wonderful, thanks, okay. I don't know if this is off of the Skirmish Sangan rule set. I mean, I'm going so fast, y'all probably don't know. So I don't know if that's a modification for Skirmish Sangan. None of this really looks like it fits to the Ultracombat Normandy. Let's see. Huh. Introduction to Vietnam. Vietnam War. I was looking to see if it mentions what rule set. I'm just skimming. With Skirmish Quang Tri. Oh, that might be somebody else's game. So maybe this is based on Skirmish Sangan, but just Vietnam. All right. Well, I think we've rambled on long enough. I appreciate you watching and hanging out. If this gave you any valuable information, great. Otherwise, this was just a chat and hangout video. So I'll just slap a vlog on this, and then bam, you get what you get when you watch. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you another time. Bye.